JKL we're having today. Thank you. Welcome back. We are live with two doctors. That's right. Dr. Barak, he just informed us, and he is a PhD. It's good to know. And of course,
not
Dr. BLO. Doctor and doctor.
No, not informed you, but you know what Achebe says about the lizard and the iroko tree.
It doesn't...
And PLO told me, look, there are all these things which you know and which are very good, but you must sort yourself out to become a man of title.
And you are. You succeeded. Well done. Prof, let's face it. Some people say things started falling apart when the handshake happened. Is that a misreading of the equation? No, and what happens to Raila Odinga now,
you know,
in this whole handshake?
Jeff, I am not one to... There are too many pundits who have given their analysis of this particular issue. But let us look at the context of what is now described as the handshake. What happened at that time is that the country was on tenterhooks. Therefore, the rapprochement perhaps was necessary, but it started on a wrong footing. One would have thought that the leader of the opposition at that time marshaled in his entire troop. But as we now know, even in those early days, there are individuals who are sulking and have continued to sulk to date. So that the entire process started on the wrong footing. And when that happened, I think we were applying band-aid solutions to a cancerous problem. And when you do that, the cancer festers. The net effect of what we have seen now is that while the handshake, so-called, was touted as a healing process, another new and bigger wound has appeared. So from my own standpoint, it merely graduated a small wound to an even bigger one. And we can see it because immediately that the handshake took place and postponed the problem rather than solved it, within the government there was conflict that was brewing, and now we can see it in its full splendor. And the country has been paying for it for the last 4 years. As Barak said a little earlier, this country has been engaged in wars of different intensities. And what we have seen is the indiscipline in government. What we have seen is the intensification of negative ethnicity. What we have seen is the theater of the absurd that you've talked about. What we have seen is preparation for an election 4 years in advance. People have been on a campaign trail since the year 2017. And our economy, tomorrow, the Treasury will be announcing the rebasing of the Kenyan economy. And they may very well say that our economy is 100 billion GDP, a lie. This economy has shrunk, and there is evidence everywhere. And I attribute this to the squabbling within government. And that is a tragedy of gigantic proportions. But we also warned ourselves that we don't want to be wallowing in the sea of lamentation without prescribing what it is. Let us now ask ourselves, what have we done as a people? What have we done in order to ensure that we set a new agenda? One of the things that makes me most unhappy is the print media in this country. If you read the print media from January now to now, you will discover that the headline has been the same thing for more than 90% of the times. They don't set agenda, as Barak will articulate a little bit more. They don't set agenda. They don't talk about what we ought to do in agriculture. They don't talk about what we ought to do in manufacturing. They don't talk about the things that we ought to do in the East African region. As I speak to you now, the port of Mombasa is losing out to the port of Dar es Salaam. As I speak to you now, businesses are being set up in Kigali, in Rwanda, and not in Nairobi. As I speak to you now, we are losing the things that were naturally ours. And this is attributable to a leadership that has been gripped by myopia. It is attributable to a leadership that is bent on pursuing political power for its own sake. This is as a result of a political leadership that is dictated by unbridled ambition to the detriment of the people. And it is our duty, therefore, and you who have the honor and privilege of organizing forums such as this, to begin to give the oxygen of publicity to men and women who are going to speak from the agora and say, no more shall we allow the agenda to be set by people who are fundamentally broken records, whose songs we have heard, whose cacophony of noise we have entertained for the last 24 years. If we do that, something dramatic may happen between now and the month of August. Who knows?
Who knows, Barack? And yet we continue. I mean, the coalitions continue being formed. You hear One Kenya Alliance. You hear there's a third force. You hear there's, I mean, it's the usual suspects. It's the same individuals.
It's a game of musical chairs. They're not saying anything new. They're not saying they want to unite so that we can become what? You hear people saying, I'm the best for president. Make me president. But they're not telling you what they will make you after you have made them president. Another one wants to become governor so that you can become what? Another one wants to become senator so that the citizen becomes what? But the citizen is caught up in a long night of slumber. And it behooves us in certain key and critical institutions to wake up this citizen. That speaking as an African citizen, I'm reminded that there are at least 3 critical institutions. There's the town crier, who we see going around in the night announcing what should happen the next day. The town crier. The media is the latter day town crier. And the town crier is held in very high esteem globally, to the extent that Cromwell coins the notion of the fourth estate and says, and they more powerful than all the rest. Are we using that opportunity to set agenda? Because the town crier is the trailblazer, the bearer of the torch, who must show us the path. And when we get lost, the searchlight must come back to the path and tell us that is where to go. But then we also have the custodians of the shrine, and who quite often get lost. And when they get lost, they must also be called back to order by the town criers that they are lost. They have lost direction, and the sheep and the people with them. The academy is lost. The professors, PLO, with a profound respect to the academy and the professors and the people of letters and high learning and the philosophers and philosopher kings, they have also queued right there. I'm reminded of Joseph de Graft's famous play, Muntu, where it doesn't matter who you are and what you have achieved, which high scales, great heights you have scaled, you come back to worship this ethnic messiah, and you have to place your goods, your letters, and your high learning before this second son of Muntu. We need to wake ourselves from that slumber. And I've said before, I say it again, certain things must be said repeatedly. The same way we keep hearing about the parable of the sower. I've heard it I don't know how many times, and when I go to church and read about it, I still listen. The media has got three roles, three primary roles. The first one is to inform us and inform the people impartially. We say that facts are sacred. In my communications class, I always say, comma, opinion free. That comma is important. Facts are sacred when they are not laced with opinion. The moment you lace them with opinion, they lose their sanctity. Can we give that information to the people without clouding it with opinion? And opinion must describe itself as opinion, so that we have the op-eds, and we are using them for the valuable purpose of helping the society to move 1, 2, 3 more steps in the right direction. But finally, and most critically, is agenda setting. That all these people may do everything that they are doing, and if we think that they are taking the country on the wrong course, we forget about them. We cannot be lamenting about what we are calling the grand super spreaders, but we are following them with our cameras. They know that we are going to follow them with our cameras, and that is exactly what they want. There are people in this country who will not begin a meeting, who will not start reading the document that they have before they have seen these TV cameras. They will serve tea, they give you mandazi, and people will be kept waiting until they see these cameras. Keep away these cameras from these people and take them to more useful things. That is agenda setting. Tell Kenyans that what we want, the country we want, is a country of such and such a description. And let Kenyans therefore find the leaders that fit in those prisms, regardless of whether they have money or they do not have money. Yeah. Because like Obama said, yes, we can. The pulpit must be redeemed, because I think we have got a lot of pretenders now owning the pulpits.
All right, gentlemen, let's discuss going forward. Prof, going forward, what do we need to do?
Going forward, I think there are a number of things that we as a nation must do. I think this is the point in time that we must go back to the basics. We must ask ourselves what it is that we must do to make Kenya secure. And I say this in the context of what we are seeing in Laikipia. I say this in the context of what we are seeing around the country and the insecurity. And we must therefore ask ourselves, what are the kind of men and women that we are putting in those places? We must ask ourselves what we are doing in our education sector. What kind of men and women are we putting in those positions? What are we doing about our agriculture now that the president has declared drought to be a national disaster? What are we doing about our borders? What are we doing about unemployment? What are we doing about the businesses that have suffered during COVID? What are we doing about our health system that is still being weighed down by the COVID reality? And when we ask those very practical questions, then we recognize that politics becomes a very important ingredient or instrument in solving these things. I always love these opening words in the American Declaration of Independence because they transcend all societies. We hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain alienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that it is for this reason that governments are instituted amongst men to do certain things. And that therefore calls into question how we play our politics. Right now, we have campaigns that are going on full throttle. At a time when no seats have been declared vacant. I've not heard the IEBC declaring the office of the president to be vacant. Have not the IEBC declaring that the gubernatorial seats are vacant? Let the country go back and address fundamental issues. When the seats are declared vacant and the campaign period is then set, then let us begin to campaign. But for the moment, we must move in the direction of sanitizing our politics. We must move in the direction of ensuring that we re-inject discipline in government. President Kenyatta is leaving office. He's not going to ask anybody for his vote. As a citizen of this country, what I'm asking of my president, the buck stops at you. Come out. Address your nation. Tell your ministers, I want discipline. Tell the opposition and parliament, we want discipline. Instruct your people to do what is in the best interest of the country, so that in these last days of his presidency, he is remembered as a president who, in the midst of a pandemic and difficulties, restored discipline. As a president who, when the country was going awry, was able to come back and hold the reins. As a president who then midwifed in an impartial way a process which produces a leader whom the people have chosen in a democratic process. That is to the political leadership. To we, the people, and Baraka has talked about the academy. The academy must now rise up. We have over 68 universities. I want to hear UASU and other bodies, beyond speaking about their salaries, talking about the state of the nation. I want to hear the trade unions talking about the state of the nation. I want to hear the churches and the mosques and temples talking about the state of the nation. I want to hear the private sector talk about the state of the nation. Because if the politicians succeed in messing up our country, and they are trying very hard to mess it up, all of us will drown. It is now that we can stop them. There is time, and it can be done. And history has demonstrated not once, not twice, that the institution of the presidency can do it. Our president, history sits upon his laps, begging him, Mr. President, seize this moment. How I urge him to seize it.
If I could use your Latin words, carpe diem.
Carpe diem.
How's that?
Yeah, but the days are ending. Of course, it's got to cut it, chop it off one at a time. But His Excellency, the President, is also headed into the lame duck season. And that hiatus that he has is a very short one. It's a very small, limited gap, because that window is closing. When you see the defiance within his own fraternity, it's an indication that he doesn't have such a long distance to run. Even the people who have been very staunchly pro-BBI from his own backyard, you're seeing they're beginning to hem and haw, that they're starting to engage in doublespeak. And it's the doublespeak of migration, pre-migration doublespeak. Such that if for a moment he just forgot a little bit about this thing of it is so and so, such and such an individual that should succeed me, and focused a lot more on it is this kind of person, or it's this kind of country that I want to lay the foundation for. Because he has already lost 4 years. These past 4 years have been a wasted season of internecine, intra-jubilee wrangles. You asked about the handshake. I think the handshake was the catalyst where Mr. Odinga found his way into the Jubilee ship, and he rocked it from within. He had good reason to get on board that ship and rock it, because it was a hostile Amanda. He believed that they had stolen his election. And when he got there, he must have got there as an unhappy person. I don't know what agreement he reached with the president. He has seemed as if he has been in co-presidency with His Excellency the President. These people are in the habit of reaching certain agreements that we never get to know about in public. We only get to hear about them years later, months later, that there was this agreement which was breached, and instead focused on the right things. The IBC is one institution that we have not been talking about. The BBI missed it. The BBI said nothing about how to manage elections so that we do not have the kind of, a repeat of the kind of situation that we have had in the past. I have seen that people are baying for Chebukati's blood. And the pattern is exactly the same as it has been in the past. Chebukati might survive, or he might go. I don't know. Procurement issues, some people have even gone to court. They are saying postpone the elections. This is the kind of confusion that the country does not need. But you can see that these are also the preparatory and preliminary stages that eventually mature in rejection of election results and election-related violence. This thing about Chebukati should go, the other two commissioners with him should go, is something to be watched. It is in its puppy stages. It's going to mature into some kind of dogmatism, from puppyism to dogmatism to electoral violence, the things which must be midwifed.
Yeah. Gentlemen, I think with Magic World, we have some tweets. I'm sure the tweets are coming in so thick. We can talk about this all day.
Absolutely.
Every day. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with talking. It's a slippery slope we're going down.
In the beginning, there was the word.
And the word was?
Was with God.
With God.
Let's go to the tweets. Let's check out. So many tweets, so thick and fast. Sir Dam says, do you think Kenya needs a transformative, in brackets, revolutionary leader, or should we just implement 70% of the current constitution? Barack, real quick.
It's the constitution. Just implement it.
Yeah.
And those who act and speak against the constitution are sleeping in the middle of a revolution. Rip Van Winkle.
Rip Van Winkle. I agree. That
you agree, Prof?
We implement the constitution, we'll make a few mistakes. The only thing is that we must not persist in our foolishness. We'll make mistakes, and we must have the courage to acknowledge and correct them. And that we can't do in an environment of dignity and mutual respect.
Absolutely. Mulindi Osome says, so who do we blame? The president, the DP, the opposition? Going to bed with the opposition was the greatest mistake. Call it what you wish. Peace for a country isn't attained in such a way. Prof?
My own view is that let us not apportion blame. If you want to apportion blame, then you'll never get anywhere. My view is that we identify the areas in which we have faltered, and it is our duty to all have our hands on deck and to ensure that we make demands of leaders. You see that in countries where people have gone, where things have been realized, the population has made demands of their leaders, and the leaders are then sensitive to those demands. That is what we must do.
All hands on deck, I agree. Tony Manyara says, tribalism in Kenya is responsible for underdevelopment, corruption, rigging of elections, and violence. What can its background tell us about the future risks of Kenyan tribalism and how to put it to an end? How do we do that, Barack? How do we put an end to tribalism?
It's a social construction. I don't have any problems with people from other tribes in the country. Nobody from other tribes has a problem with me. And I have not seen ordinary Kenyans having challenges with one another. It is that clique at the top which has created that particular construction, social construction, for its own benefit.
Yeah.
You know, the tribe is something that is manufactured, and tribalism is used by the selfish and myopic politician for short-term political gains. Otherwise, unity in diversity is our strength as a people. That is the way we should do it. do about it.
Yeah. Do we have to reset our brains? Is that what we're going to have to do? Just reset?
This kind of engagement that we are in is part of the education. You can, somebody is asking, we talk about the CBC and the new curriculum.
Right.
One of the things that I have a problem with in this country is that we have stated in our constitution and in the instruments within the region that we are working towards an East African integration. And we said it at the very beginning that if you want to integrate, one of the things you want to do is to harmonize your education system. In the last 25 years, we have changed our education. We migrated from the old system into the 844. I've not been told why we did. We now have CBC, and the region is not doing the same. We've got to behave as if we want to be part of East Africa so that we have migration of labor. In my view, CBC is something that we should interrogate within the context of the region, because labor that is only useful within Kenya is not the kind of labor that we want. I want labor to be agile and to be acceptable within the region and beyond. And we are implementing things. Look at CBC and what it needs, and look at the kind of schools that we have in rural Kenya, half of which do not even have electricity and other things. We've got to question these things. This idea by people who are in policy-making positions that they have the monopoly of knowledge and wisdom is misguided. It is the shortest avenue to chaos and confusion. And CBC must be interrogated. If you talk to professionals, they'll tell you that those in policy-making decisions simply rammed it down their throats, and they were told this is the way to go. Now we are learning on the go. Not good. Not good.
Thomas Masoti is asking, would any of them dare run for presidency? If yes, what would be any 3 changes they would champion for? Barack? 3 things.
First of
if you were to run.
First of all, this country doesn't vote for people like me, and therefore I would not offer myself for electoral politics.
Meaning what? Intellectuals? People like you.
Just understand, people like myself, people who are independent-minded. Because to be elected in this country, you must first of all identify a demigod. You must kneel and prostrate yourself before that demigod. And sometimes you must take your wherewithal before that demigod. And you must even send messages to editors in media houses like this one and tell them that if you joke with so-and-so, we are going to sort you out. I'm sure you are familiar with those kinds of things. I've got neither the ability nor the proclivity to worship a human demigod. I only worship God. So a country like this one does not elect people like myself.
My own view is that they are, when you want to be the president of a young nation such as this, you've got to deal with the soft issues first. And part of the problem, one of the issues that we must fix is the nature of our politics. And I think that the architecture of our politics will require, among other things, that we have institutions that are functioning, that are capable of serving the people at the grassroots. Number one. Number two, you want to deal with mobilization of resources, because once you have sanitized your politics and you have mobilized resources, then you have the ability to implement the agenda that you put on the table, whether it's in agriculture, it's in education, in health, and those other areas. And number three, the human resource. Who are the kind of individuals that you want to be deployed to preside over these things? I was talking to my friend Ole Kina, and he was telling me that just this afternoon they have brought in a bill requiring that people who want to contest certain offices must have university degrees. Not that degrees make people to be better, but the possession of knowledge and exposure is a good thing, because it enables you to understand the sophistications of governance in the 21st century. I believe that if we do all those things, deal with human resources, create an enabling political environment, and utilize our resources in a proper manner, then we will achieve what governments are meant to do, to improve the quality of the lives of the people and to unlock their potential.
Yeah.
The pursuit of happiness. And that picture of where you want the country to be, it must be the beginning point. that in another 50 years, 100 years, this is the kind of country that we want to have. And to get to that model country that we want 50 years from now, this is the human resource that we need. And therefore, harmonize training with labor. We are training people whom we don't know what we want to do with. Hence, graduates will come out of various institutions and then they start loafing around. They border.
There is a nagging question
traffic.
there which you must speak to even as you talk.
To Barack, kindly ask the lingual duo about the entry of Musalia Kalonzo and the likes of Muturi and Jimmy Wanjigi to 2022 presidential contest. Gentlemen?
It's a good thing. I think eventually I would desire a situation where they all run. I would desire to see a situation where there's no clear winner. Instead of them haggling all the time about I'm the best, you must support me. And then let the Wananchi voters nominate the last two people who get to the wire.
No, the individuals have the right to offer themselves for election. I do not begrudge them. In my view, I've seen enough of them in the last 10 years. If I was asked to vote for any one of the individuals that are named there, I would be very slow to vote for them. Because I would be very slow because I've seen them serve as cabinet ministers. I've seen them serve in different capacity in the government, and they do not inspire my confidence. But people are capable of changing. If they change and they are capable of demonstrating that they can deliver, then it is the duty of Kenyans to consider, to weigh them on the scale, and if they find them worthy, to then give them the opportunity to serve. But one of the things that I've realized is that the ballot box is not a magic box that converts people suddenly. so that is the caveat that I would put on the table. And I see somebody wants us to talk about the BBI. It's sub judice. So there is a sense in which we must be very slow to look at the merits of it. But I want to say something without offending the rule of sub judice, that there is no constitution in the world that does not lend itself to amendment at any one time in its life. The only thing that I want to say, and this is a view that I've articulated before, is that the BBI, as it was conceived and marketed, was dead on arrival. It was a process that was not commenced in accordance with the Constitution, and I'm now happy that the High Court has made that finding and the Court of Appeal has made that finding, and those who have aggrieved have found it fit to go to the higher court. Let us wait for the higher court to pronounce itself on that issue, and once they have, we shall then have the occasion to unpack the judgment that will be delivered. Part of the discipline that I'm talking about is to recognize the rule of sub judice.
Yes, and an opinion nonetheless is important and critical, especially about the so-called eternal clauses, those which we cannot amend. And I've seen that that's one of the reasons we are going to the Supreme Court. I want to believe that the Constitution of Kenya has clauses that are eternal, that cannot be amended. For example, we can't say that we want to amend the Constitution so that we become a monarchy, a constitutional monarchy. Our Constitution says that we are a Republican institution, a Republican entity. We are a constitutional democracy. And if you're going to say, let us change, let us amend so that maybe we now have a monarchical system of government, I think that would be a very retrogressive kind of...
We will reserve that debate. I do not believe that there are eternal clauses, but I believe that there are certain basic structure issues. But we'll debate that a little bit more elaborately on a different occasion.
Let's come back.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you. Closing thoughts. Let's get some closing thoughts. Barack, let's start with you. Closing thoughts going forward.
Yeah, I think we are in a very delicate moment. And my plea would go to the alpha political class, as I call it, that it needs to slow down. If it doesn't slow down, it's going to take this country down to the abyss. Because the things that they are saying to one another, the things that we are seeing them do, we begin seeing them percolating downwards. And as they cascade downwards, they start getting to their less sophisticated supporters. And you start seeing the kinds of things that we witnessed over the weekend. The stoning of the deputy president's motorcade. I think it's completely unacceptable. They started experimenting with stoning the former prime minister's motorcade somewhere in Kasarani. They got away with it. They have become bolder. They have stoned the deputy president. They have gotten away with it. I'm very worried that the next thing we are going to see is somebody actually being foolish enough to attempt to stone the presidential motorcade. I've seen an individual even disrupt the presidential motorcade only earlier this year. Certain institutions are sacrosanct. It doesn't matter whether you like the individual who is there or not, whether you agree with them or not, whether you like President Kenyatta or not, Deputy President Ruto or not, whether you like Raila Odinga or not. Give them that space. Let us have conversations of this kind. Let us agree to disagree, but let us not take that route.
Absolutely. Prof, you get the last word.
But my view is that we must sanitize our politics. We must introduce discipline in our politics. We must tell the politicians that they are exposing this country to grave danger. And we should ask constitutional institutions that have been created to begin playing their function. The National Commission on Cohesion, I want to hear their voice about the ethnic venom that is being spewed around. The Commission for Human Rights, I want to hear their voices. The churches and the mosques and all Kenyans of goodwill. This is the time to remind the political class that if we continue on this trajectory, then we are exposing our country to mortal danger. To the population, don't allow yourselves to be manipulated by your ethnic kingpins. If one is from your tribe and they become president, they'll not become president of your tribe. They'll become the president of the Republic of Kenya. What we want is service delivery. And to the president of the Republic of Kenya, history is beckoning. In the month of August, after the 9th day of August, a week from that, you will not be the president of this country. Historians will be looking back and they will ask, when you had the chance, did you secure the country? We are asking you, move now and say what other leaders have said before. The buck stops with you, and Kenyans of goodwill will support you in that quest. And to the politicians, lastly, during this COVID, please just respect people's lives. You love votes. You need their votes. Don't expose them to premature death through your recklessness and unbridled ambition. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. I could talk about this every single day, and it's great that you guys come. Thank you for coming all the way from Emmanuelia. Please greet the Emmanuelians when you go back.
I'm going back tomorrow. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Barack Muluka, PhD.
Yes.
Thanks to Prof.
The lizard that jumped from the great Iroko tree.
Yes.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate
God
it. This is a conversation we need to keep having over and over again. There's nothing wrong with keep having this conversation, folks. Because like I say, let's keep talking. Because the moment we stop talking, is the moment we'll start fighting. And
Absolutely.
You do not want to go down that slippery slope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. Again, spread the word about this particular show. Play it over and over and over again. Thank you all. Good night. Good luck. God bless you all. God bless, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you.